I built that house with my own hands, not all of it, but enough of it that I know every wall. I know where the wood creaks in the hallway. I know which window sticks in the summer. I know the smell of the paint in the back bedroom, because I chose it myself. I stood in the store for 20 minutes holding two nearly identical shades of white until the man at the counter asked if I needed help. I did not need help. I just wanted it to be right. That was 31 years ago. My son Daniel was not even born yet. My wife Margaret was pregnant and tired, and she sat in the car and waited for me. She never complained about the waiting. She was that kind of woman, patient, steady. She believed in what we were building. We moved in during October. The floors were cold. The heating was not finished yet. We slept with extra blankets, and Daniel kicked inside her, and we laughed about how he was probably cold too. Those were good days. Hard days, but good. Margaret died 11 years ago. Cancer. It was fast and it was not fast. Those things are always both. Daniel was in his late 20s then. He had just finished school. He was a good boy at that point. Grieving, but good. We got through it together. He stayed with me in that house for 2 years after she passed. We ate dinner together most nights. We watched bad television. We did not talk much, but we were there for each other, and that was enough. Then he met Vanessa. I want to be fair. I tried to be fair from the beginning. She was pretty, and she was sharp, and she made Daniel laugh in a way I had not seen in a long time. I was glad for that. When he told me he wanted to marry her, I said yes without hesitation. I meant it. I shook his hand, and I hugged him, and I told him his mother would have been happy. We had the wedding in the backyard of my house. I paid for most of it. I did not complain about that. It was what fathers do. The first sign came early. Vanessa had opinions about the house. That is not unusual. Young women want their own space. I understood that. But her opinions were not suggestions. They were corrections. She would walk through the rooms and make small sounds, little exhales, like she was cataloging everything wrong with the place. She rearranged things without asking. She moved a photograph of Margaret from the living room to the hallway. She said it was for better feng shui. I moved it back. She moved it again. I did not say anything that time. Daniel started working less. Vanessa had ideas about a business she wanted to start. She needed support. She needed time. Daniel left his job to help her. The business never really worked. I lent them money, twice, then a third time. I did not keep strict track because I did not want to make it feel transactional. He was my son. You do not hand your son an invoice. About 2 years into the marriage, they moved into the house with me. It was my suggestion, actually. They were struggling with rent. The house was big. It made sense. I told myself it would be temporary. I think I knew it would not be. Living with Vanessa was like living with weather. Some days she was warm and the house felt easy. Other days, something was wrong and you did not know what, and she would not say, and Daniel would be quiet and tense and walking carefully around her. I learned to read the mornings. If she made coffee without offering me any, I knew it was going to be one of those days. She started calling it their house, not my house, not the family house, their house. At first it was small things. She would say to Daniel in front of me that they should repaint their house. They should upgrade the kitchen in their house. I let it go. I am not a man who picks every fight. Then Daniel started saying it too. I noticed it one afternoon when a neighbor came by. Nice man. He had lived next door for 15 years. He asked how we were all doing. Daniel said fine and mentioned some work he was planning to do around the house. The neighbor looked at me and then back at Daniel. Daniel did not notice anything, but I did. After that, I started paying closer attention, and what I saw made me tired in a way I had not felt since Margaret died. Vanessa had started managing things, the bills, the schedules, who was invited over, what was spent where. She had figured out the shape of the house, and she was quietly filling it. Daniel followed her like he followed the current of a river, not fighting, not choosing, just going. I started eating in my room sometimes. Not always, but sometimes it was easier. Less friction, less of Vanessa's eyes moving over me like I was a problem she was still deciding how to solve. Then came the Saturday in March. I remember it clearly because the morning was bright and I had been out early working in the garden. I came in through the back door. I was still in my boots. I tracked a little mud on the kitchen floor. Not much, a few marks. I was going to clean it. Vanessa was standing at the counter. She looked at the floor. She looked at me. She did not say anything at first. She just stared at my boots like they were something offensive. Then she said very quietly that she would appreciate it if I removed my shoes before entering. I looked at her. I said I had been taking off my shoes in that house for 30 years before she arrived. She smiled. That kind of smile that is not a smile. Then she said that things were different now. Daniel was in the next room. He had heard. He came in. I looked at him. I waited. He sided with her. It was not dramatic. He just agreed with her. He said it was a reasonable request. He said it like he was reading from something she had written for him earlier. He did not look at me directly. I went upstairs. I took off my boots. I sat on the edge of the bed in my room, and I looked at the window and I thought about my wife. I thought about what she would have said. I think she would have prayed first. Then she would have said something quiet and true. I did not have a prayer in me that day. Things moved faster after that. Conversations I was not included in. Decisions made without me. One evening I came downstairs and there were boxes in the hallway. My boxes. The ones from the storage room. They had been pulled out and stacked near the front door. I asked what was happening. Daniel came out of the kitchen. Vanessa was behind him. He did not look nervous. He looked like a man who had made a decision and was committed to it. That was the worst part. He was not conflicted. He had already finished the argument inside himself. He said they needed more space. He said it had not been working. He said they had talked about it and they thought it would be best if I found somewhere else to live. I stood there. I did not speak for a moment. Then I said his name. Just his name. Daniel. He said, Dad. I know this is hard. I said, this is my house, Daniel. He looked at me then, and I saw something in his face that I still think about. It was not cruelty. It was not hatred. It was something closer to convenience, like he had sorted me into a category that made the decision easier. He said, Dad, the house has been ours for years. We pay the utilities. We handle everything. This is our home now. You need to go somewhere that works better for everyone. Vanessa said nothing. She stood with her arms folded, and she looked past me at the wall. I said I wanted a few days. He said he had already changed the locks. I heard that like a sound from far away. I said, what? He said he had a new key for me. For now. But he thought it was better this way. Cleaner. He used that word. Cleaner. I walked to the front door. I opened it. Outside, the neighbor was doing something in his yard. He looked up. He watched. I did not want to be watched. I closed the door and went back upstairs and sat down again on the edge of the bed. I stayed in that house 3 more days. They were the longest 3 days I can remember. Meals alone, doors closed, my things already boxed. Vanessa walking past my room without acknowledgement. Daniel trying once to talk to me about logistics. I told him I did not want to discuss logistics. He nodded and left. I left on a Wednesday morning. I loaded my car by myself. Nobody came out to help. The neighbor watched from across the street again. This time he walked over. He was a good man. He said he was sorry. He did not know what was happening. I said it was family business. He nodded and helped me carry 2 boxes anyway. I drove to a motel. Not because I had nowhere to go. I had options. But I needed somewhere quiet to think. I sat in that motel room and I opened my phone and I called my lawyer. His name is Robert. He has handled my affairs for many years. He's older than me, and he does not waste words. I told him what had happened. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something I will not forget. He said, "Did Daniel ever actually read the deed?" I said I did not know. Robert said he thought we should have a conversation. The house was in my name. Just mine. Margaret and I had set it up that way early in our marriage because of a complicated situation with her family estate that no longer mattered but had shaped how we did things legally. After she passed, I'd updated the paperwork. But not the way Daniel assumed I had. There was no joint ownership. There was no informal transfer. There was nothing. More than that, there was a trust. I had set it up years ago as part of my estate planning. The house was inside that trust. The trust had conditions. One of them was continued family relationship in good standing. There was language in there that Robert had insisted on and that I had agreed to without fully understanding how precise it was. Daniel had effectively triggered a clause by formally removing me from the residence and changing the locks. In a legal sense, he had not just been rude. He had broken the terms of the trust. Robert sent a letter. It went to the house. It was formal and it was thorough, and it explained the situation clearly. It also included a notice of intent to reclaim the property under the terms of the trust. Daniel called me that same evening. He did not start with an apology. He started with confusion. He said the letter must be wrong. He said surely I could not be serious. He said they had been living there. They had been paying things. Surely that counted for something. I said, "Let me stop you there." He went quiet. I said, "You told me it was your house. You changed the locks on my house. You told me to find somewhere else to live. Do you remember saying those things?" He said, "Dad, come on." I said, "I am not coming on anywhere. I'm asking you a question." He said things had gotten out of hand. He said Vanessa had been going through a hard time. He said he had not been thinking clearly. I said, "I understand." And I said, "I want you to understand something too. When you changed those locks, you stopped being a son who made a mistake and became someone who made a choice. There is a difference." He said, "Dad, please." I said, "I will be at the house on Friday morning. I am bringing Robert. Please be there." We arrived at 9. Robert had the paperwork. He was calm. I was calm. Vanessa met us at the door. She had a look I recognized, the look of someone who has realized they misjudged how much power they had. Daniel stood behind her. He looked smaller than I remembered, not physically, just smaller. Robert walked them through the documents. It did not take long. The law does not require length. It just requires clarity. At one point, Daniel looked at me over Robert's shoulder. He had tears starting. He said, "Dad, you don't have to do this." I looked at him for a moment. Then I said, "You told me this was your house. You were right. It is not my house anymore. Now it is not yours either." He flinched at that. I watched it happen. I did not feel joy. That is important to say. I am not a man who enjoys this kind of moment, but I'm a man who believes in clarity. And that moment was very clear. They had 30 days. Robert was generous with the timeline, more generous than he needed to be. I did not interfere with that. I told him 30 days was fine. I did not move back in immediately. The house needed time. It needed quiet. I went back a week after they left and I walked through every room, slowly. I stood in the kitchen. I stood in the hallway. I went into the bedroom that had been mine and then had been theirs, and I opened the window and let the air move through. The photograph of Margaret was gone. They had taken it. I do not know if it was an accident or something else. I prefer to think it was an accident. Daniel called a few more times. He left messages. They were polite messages, careful messages. He was trying to find the right words. I listened to them. I did not always call back right away. When I did call back, I kept it short. I told him I loved him. I meant that. I always will. But I also told him that love does not mean forgetting. It does not mean pretending. It does not mean handing someone back the knife they used on you and calling it peace. He said he was sorry. I believed him. The sorry was real. The problem is that sorry is not a foundation. It is just a word. And we were going to need more than a word if anything was going to grow back between us. I told him time. I said, "Give it time. Work on yourself. Figure out who you are without her voice in your ear telling you what to do and what to take. Come back to me as a man who stands on his own." He said, "Okay." I said, "I will be here." And I meant that too. I am back in the house now. It feels different and it feels the same. The window still sticks in the summer. The hallway still creaks. I found a new photograph of Margaret and put it back in the living room where it belongs. She looks the same in it as she always did. Patient, steady. I drink my coffee in the morning and I look out at the garden and I think about what 30 years of a life looks like when you lay it out flat. There are things to be proud of. There are things to grieve. There are things you cannot change and things you realize you should have changed sooner. My son is out there somewhere figuring things out. I hope Vanessa is too. I do not wish them harm. I genuinely do not. But I also do not apologize for what I did. I took back what was mine. I did it quietly. I did it legally. and I did it as a man who had been patient far longer than most men would have been. If he comes back to me, I will be here. The door's not locked, not anymore. But I hold the key.